This is Aaron Carpenter. Welcome to the Canadian Ruck.
All right, and welcome back to the Canadian Ruck. This week, this pod, we feature Aaron Carpenter. Aaron had 80 caps with Canada. That's the most with Rugby Canada. So he's Canada's long-standing, I guess, player with most games. That's awesome. He's recorded 85 points with Rugby Canada. He also repped Rugby Canada at the 07, the 2011, and the 2015 Rugby World Cups. Played over a decade in England, with most matches coming with Plymouth. Very versatile, unreal. This guy played 8 and hooker for Rugby Canada. That's a very high skill level if somebody can do that. And currently he is coaching with the Toronto Arrows. That's since he hung up his boots. He's been with the Arrows, helping out on the coaching staff, Toronto Arrows at the MLR. Just a little plug. Do this every week. Contact us. We're on the Twitter, the Instagram, the Facebook, the email. We're all over the place. If you need to contact us, you want to drop us a letter, you want to drop us a letter, that's the 80s maybe. If you want to drop us a line about something, Twitter, it's at Canadian Ruck, Instagram, _Canadian_Ruck, Facebook at the Canadian Ruck, and email is the CanadianRuck@gmail.com. Don't hesitate to reach out if you want a guest or you want me to ask specific questions. I'm always looking forward to that. Just as importantly as anything else is that you're watching and listening on the YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, or CastBox, and of course our website, thecanadianruck.weebly.com. But when you're listening, make sure you're following, make sure you're subscribing to get those updates. More importantly, share them out. If you see it on Twitter, retweet. If you see it on Instagram, share the story. If you see it on Facebook, share it out. Like, keep getting these messages out so that we can give these Rugby Canadian, these great athletes, the respect they deserve and have as many people listen as they can to their stories. The more the better, the more is appreciated. So let's keep getting that good rugby word out. In rugby news, we're looking at this a little bit differently. This is an old one that I stumbled across. My cousin Chris actually found this about a week ago and sent it to me, and I really wanted to share it with you. Basically, it's about accidental injuries and I guess accidental death in sport, and more specifically, the article is pertains to rugby. And beyond that would be the courageousness, the players, and especially the parents who understand that accidental injuries can happen and sometimes worse. Back in 2007, so 13 years ago, Casey Cizikas. Casey now plays with the New York Islanders of the NHL. He's been in the NHL for about a decade. And back in 2007, he was a 16-year-old kid playing rugby, getting ready for his chance to try out for a major junior team. In this rugby match he was playing, he was tangled up with 15-year-old Manny Castillo. And Castillo, by accounts that were in the newspaper and everything, put Cizikas in a headlock, non-rugby move. And Cizikas, whether it was, years of playing hockey and the instinct to fight back, whether it was just a teenage thing, whether it was just whatever, I really don't know. I wasn't there, but he drove Castillo into the ground head first. And a few days later, unfortunately, Manny Castillo, 15 years old, passed away. Very sad, very unfortunate. And by all accounts, it seems like an accident. Cizikas was then taken to court, and he received a 1-year probation plus community service duties. The judge basically said he had heard accounts from both sides. It wasn't overly clear, but he said the play was outside the confines of rugby law, and that's the reason he gave a 1-year probation and community service. A couple of things stick with me. When I read this article, and then I did a little more research, and I read a couple other follow-ups. One, when reading about this, Castillo's family never put any blame on Cizikas. The father, who was interviewed days after his son died, argued it was a total accident and just a bad sports play. He didn't put any blame. He didn't say it was he actually said this was not a hockey or rugby incident. It's about some coaches who don't know how to teach kids. So he didn't blame Cizikas. It sounds like he might have put a little bit of blame on the coaching, and wasn't really clear if he was talking about Cizikas' coach or Castillo's coach. But he did put a bit of blame there, but no blame on the boys. He didn't blame Cizikas at all, and like a courageous parent, understood that sometimes accidents happen, whether it's in rugby or hockey or driving a car or walking down a flight of stairs. Like accidents can happen regardless as to where you happen to be. So I read this story, and it really struck a chord with me. One of my good buddies kind of went through a nightmarish scene himself a couple years back. There was no death, thank God. But at the time, his son, 13-year-old Elliot, was in a rugby injury, had a rugby incident, and he was injured. And I had a chance to sit down with Archie there a couple nights ago, and we had a great conversation. So I want you to sit back, listen to Archie's story, and then we'll move on here. All right, so welcome.
Take two.
Welcome back to the Canadian Ruck. Lucky enough tonight to have my good buddies Archie and Dave here along for the journey. And as I said earlier in the intro, we were talking about accidental injuries in rugby, and we talked about the Casey Cizikas incident from 2007. But Archie, my good buddy here, has got a personal story about his son Elliot, and he's going to share some of that with us tonight, if that's all right, Arch.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. June 2nd, 2018, Elliot was involved in a middle school sevens tournament in Perth, Andover, New Brunswick. Anyway, he was making a play, took a tackle, whether it be good or bad tackle, I wasn't there to see it. After the tackle, he scooped the ball, finished the run, completed the try.
He took the tackle as in he got tackled?
Yes.
Then get up and...
Yeah. So I think it was a side-on tackle, because I think he was blindsided by it, and from my understanding. And then once he made the try, there was kids that came around to congratulate him, and he kind of pushed them off. And as he pushed them off, he sat down, and then he went unconscious.
So 2018, how old was he?
He was 13.
He was 13, so it was middle school rugby, sevens style. It was tournament style because it's sevens?
Yep. They do a thing up there called something of the Scots.
Jamboree or
Gathering of the Scots.
Gathering
something like that, yeah. So they do all kind of Scottish style games up there.
So he's in Perth, Andover, which is northern New Brunswick, about an hour from the Quebec border. So what happened? They ambulanced him to a hospital?
Yeah, so actually you probably could have carried him there.
Yeah.
My understanding was the pitch was like right across the road from the clinic that they took him to. So when they assessed him there, the doctor there realized from his symptoms that it was probably more than a concussion. The way he was acting told him that he probably had a brain bleed.
So what was he doing? Like, what was he?
He was doing a lot of yelling. Like when he did come back to consciousness, he was yelling at people. He was angry, and that's not his demeanor. He's not a.
He's more like his mom.
yeah, that's right. So he's so with those characteristics that aren't him. The clinic doctor said, the symptoms show that he has a brain bleed. We need to get him a CAT scan as soon as we can.
Okay, so they're in Perth,
Yep.
about 3 hours north of here, where we are.
Yep,
And you weren't there. Bridget wasn't there.
that's right.
So what happened?
Originally I was at work, so we were going to drive up, and I told her to come get me at work, and by the time she had gotten to work, we had gotten the phone call that they were going to airlift him to the regional in St. John, because I think that's the only CAT scan in New Brunswick, maybe.
Possibly Moncton might have one, but
Yeah.
Moncton's further away.
I don't know who has what, but I know, I think St. John has
Yeah, they're the top.
they have the most in our province.
So, for me, like knowing you, your character's like, no, he's probably okay. You've had your knocks in rugby, maybe with your head or your hammy or something. Dave and I both have. What made you decide to want to get in that car and drive up to Perth Andover?
So I guess we rewinded a little bit before they took him to the clinic. There was a couple of phone calls back and forth from my wife to me at work, and I told her, all kinds of head bumps in rugby. He'll be fine. And as the calls went back and forth, I decided to call the coach, who I played for I don't know, at this time,
20 plus years.
yeah, exactly.
The only
forever.
coach- the only
the only,
coach
the
there
only
is.
guy that would ever coach us, I guess. So, anyway, I have his cell number, so I called him,
Not the only coach there is.
and he didn't say hello when he answered the phone. He just said my name. He just said Archie. He said it's not good. So that was the extent of the conversation, basically, and I could hear the worry in his voice. And that's when we had decided, we got to get up there. And of course, things have changed, so we didn't have to drive up there. But
Yes, it was already airlifted back.
that's right. Well, they were preparing to get airlift him, yeah.
Yeah.
So he gets flown back to St. John. You and Bridget go over to the regional.
Yeah.
What's going through your mind? There's neurologists there. There's nurses. There's doctors. Like, as a parent, as a rugby guy, what are you thinking?
So I'm thinking overreaction.
By everybody.
Maybe not everybody, but probably a little bit of an overreaction by the clinic doctor, because we're 3 to 4 weeks after the incident that happened in PEI tournament style, where a young lad had lost his life to a head injury. So I'm thinking, okay, they're being very cautious. It's a head injury. It's rugby. Let's get a CAT scan.
Somebody's aware of it.
Yeah. This happened a month ago.
Not being a normal concussion or a bump on the head. It was a.
Yeah, so I don't know if there was anything, if they were on high alert because of that incident. How long geez, and I feel bad because I can't remember the young lad's name. I used to know it. I can't remember people's names after I meet them, but, the fact that they would be possibly, maybe there was a memo went out. I don't know how that, in the medical society, how that all works,
Yeah.
but, the fact that he was all over it, probably saved Elliott's life. Or maybe he would have been fine, but it definitely didn't hurt.
So, he gets a CAT scan. He's got a brain bleed. It's been a little over 2 years. How's he doing? What's going on with him now?
So, he went through sports therapy. That was however many months to get through that. Once that was completed, all the stress tests, and then they say, so he's already returned to non-contact style sport. They never once recommend that anyone with a head injury, and I know with your experience that they never recommend that you go back to contact sport. It doesn't matter what type of sport it was or how severe your head injury was. I tried to get them to say, yeah, he can be fine and he can go back and play rugby, but no one will say that, and I can't get anyone to tell me.
Their practice is on the line.
Yeah, a medical
Absolutely.
professional.
No, and but I did ask the question to the neurologist. I said, so what's the chances that he would get another brain bleed? And he said, well, if he plays contact sport, there's a chance. And I said, yeah, but does he have
What
more of a
chance?
chance of getting it than me? And he goes, well, yeah, if he's playing contact sport and you're not, he has more of a chance. So that's the brain of a medical doctor, whereas I'm trying to ask the question,
As a parent and an athlete.
is it going to make
Yeah.
right? But that's
Little
not the
more
point. Is
pragmatic about it.
he more prone to that
Yeah.
happening to him again? And I didn't express myself properly, and he was more to the point, and I just gave up. So
Yeah.
I couldn't get an answer either way. But
So he's clear for like non-contact.
non-contact, he's the first sport he actually tried to play was high school volleyball, which I found quite amusing because.
It's a great sport.
But none of us ever played volleyball. Did you ever play volleyball?
I did.
I've got
Oh
some
no, because it was
volleyball
during rugby
experience.
season.
Right.
I was not a spiker. I was more of a
Yeah,
setter,
you're-
you
Oh,
know?
you're definitely
you
not
look like a finesse player.
No, I could throw a hell of a fake from the back row, though.
So yeah, he tried to play some
People
volleyball.
take it. You can, who's the 5'7" guy coming from the back row? It doesn't matter. He's coming out of nowhere. He's not going to do anything.
It's the Canadian Ruck. It's not the Canadian volley.
That there, a spin-off.
That's right.
You can do your own.
That's right. You get your own
podcast.
The Canadian volley.
You can get some short shorts.
Oh, sure. Yeah. You want my golf lesson too?
You're all over the place. Have another rum. So he's been playing. He's playing volleyball. Like what? As a parent, as somebody who's played rugby for many years, and you're back into it now, what's your thought process for the injury and obligation of accidental issues or malicious intent, or is there anything there as a parent? Like if somebody asks you about it, what do you say to them that you harbor no hard feelings, or do you harbor hard feelings?
No, there's absolutely no hard feelings. It was a bad sports incident. It doesn't matter if it's rugby, if it's football, if it's hockey, any contact sport that you play, there's always risk. I think possibly we have to coach or train our rugby players, and maybe coach certain
Coaches?
teach coaches too. The more clinics we can put out, the better. But if you see bad habits, say from other sports, we need to coach that out of them. Like David said before, you coach defense and how to properly defend. But in that defense, you need to protect yourself and the player you're tackling.
Yep.
And that's why rugby is so much different than any other contact sport out there. That's why it's a gentleman's sport. That's why we don't wear equipment. We don't require equipment if you play the game properly. And I've said that forever.
It's not a free-for-all.
No, it isn't.
No, it doesn't have to be either. So, and I think it's easy for a young man or a young woman to find their place early in their rugby career, middle school, high school, where there's a lot of other things going on, and it's easy to throw yourself into rugby.
Yeah. I'm looking at it like I'm 44, you're 43, you're 30, closing in on 39. We all started playing rugby again this year, and it's touch rugby for sure. But if COVID wasn't here, would you guys at our age, be willing to jump in and play contact?
I've wanted to play every season that I never play.
Yeah.
So it's always been a time thing for me. Bright side of COVID, I got to play some rugby this year because my other interests were canceled. So, hey, here I am.
Here we are.
If we move into contact, I can play contact rugby. I probably can't run 20 feet because my hamstring won't hold up. But
You're gonna make the tackles.
I'm gonna try. You're right. I'll lay on the ground and just trip people if I have to. But
That's not how we teach it.
No, I know, but I'll make an attempt to rap. How does
There we
that
go.
sound? Yeah.
How about you, Dave?
I'll be around rugby if I get a chance to be around it. I attempted to coach some middle school stuff here in the last few years, and I just want to be around it. I want to smell it, feel it. Like it's way more than scoring tries and any of that kind of stuff. There's way more to rugby than just making tackles and getting tackled and scoring tries and
It's a
running down
brotherhood.
the field. Yeah, there's a whole
Friendships.
camaraderie. There's a thing that goes with it that is a little bit of an intangible, and
We're getting the signal from our producer there that we gotta slowly cut
Wrap
her
it up.
off. I think was that what that was?
I don't know.
I don't know what I think. Making us.
wrapping up.
That was wrapping up. Anyway, thanks very much for coming on, guys. Really appreciate you taking the
Yeah,
time.
Rick Jones got the last word over here. Apparently.
Arch, thanks very much for sharing
All right,
his story.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rich.
Yeah. Cheers. Cheers, boys.
Cheers. Mooney.
Sociable.
Sociable.
So that was I'm recording this intro Friday night and the 25th, and that was Wednesday night the 23rd. So what was kind of cool is that Elliot actually came out to our senior men's rugby practice last night. Now he didn't participate, but he was there, and he was watching, and coach got him to do the time and help with the score, and so it was nice to see. I mean, it's been 2+ years since that happened, and he's taking those steps, I guess, and we all wish Elliot the best, and we wish Archie and his family the best, helping him along, and he's 15-year-old now, and helping him find his way, and whether he gets back on the rugby pitch or not, he seems to be making progress, and we're all happy to see that, and we're all proud of Archie and his boy and his entire family for dealing with what they've had to deal with, and working their way through that incident. So good on you, Arch, and good on you, Elliot. Listening to Archie tell Elliot's story and reading about Cizikas, I had a couple of ideas for a gray area, but I think I'm not going to do it. I think it's, one of them was around better coaching. Is there something we need to do? I think over the years, since that Castillo incident, I think there's been a lot more training provided by Rugby Canada here in Canada. And I've noticed myself over the last 5 to 7 years in New Brunswick alone, there's been a lot more coach specific training, level 1s and level 2s, tackle specific training and things like that for coaches, which is great. So, I mean, it can always get better, but it's been improving. And then the other aspect, I thought it was accidental injuries, and I guess how maybe they're perceived in sport. I had a conversation with a couple of students in one of my classes the other day asking, we were talking sports in class, as everybody was filing out. And I asked one of them, I said, are you going to play rugby this year? And he goes, no, I don't want to get hurt. I said, what are you doing now? He goes, I play hockey. And, I've had this conversation before. I love hockey, but I'm not a fan of hockey culture, particularly in Canada. And he basically said, I don't want to jeopardize anything, and I don't want to be able to lose time from my main sport. And I look at all the people that have been on this podcast who are multi-sport athletes, a true athlete playing more than one sport, the likes of Brad May, who played rugby and hockey, and Chris Neal, rugby and hockey, Casey Zizekas, another point, who's gone on to play in the NHL and played rugby as well. And I don't know, it's something that strikes a nerve in me for sure. But anyway, he was basically saying, I don't want to get hurt if it's not in my main sport. So it's okay to get hurt playing hockey, but nowhere else. Anyway, that's not really a gray area. It's more my gray area, and probably something I need to work through myself. But if you have any thoughts on any of those things, like accidental injuries or, better coaching tips, feel free to fire me a line there, and we'll read it off, and maybe we can have a little bit of discussion about it. Before we get to Aaron, though, we're going to talk about beautiful Midland Meadows Golf Course. And Midland Meadows, beautiful 9-hole course in Midland, New Brunswick, owned and operated by Glenn and Sherry Gray. It's a par 5 that offers great country views and beautiful landscape. If you're watching on YouTube, these are a couple of their holes up in the mountains, down in the fields. It's kind of all over. It's got rolling hills, natural water hazards. Very challenging for any golfer. I've seen a lot of guys lose balls, but I've also seen some really good scores out here. Check them out at midlandmeadowsgolfclub.com. That's midlandmeadowsgolfclub.com, or look for them on Facebook. Great rates, friendly people, and a very, very beautiful course. Coming up now, Aaron Carpenter. All right, and the Canadian Ruck would like to welcome Aaron Carpenter, Canada's most capped player, to the podcast. So, Aaron, welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Jamie, thanks for having me on. I think this is an awesome opportunity to get on your podcast and be able to talk to yourself.
That's awesome. I appreciate it. And beforehand, Aaron was saying that he's listened to a few pods, so I feel very blessed to have Aaron say that's great stuff. Let's jump right in here. So, Canada is a hockey nation. You were born in Brantford, Ontario, home of Wayne Gretzky. Talk to us about how you became involved in rugby in that area, like your high school level, provincial programs, university, et cetera. Like, what was your pathway moving up through the rugby ranks?
Yeah, when I saw this question, it's Brantford is an amazing city. Just first and foremost, it's the mentality there is sports is incremental to the development of young people, right? So anywhere you look, you can get into whatever you're interested. American football, soccer, baseball. You got it all. and you're allowed to try those sports and be able to get better at them. And for me, it was just obviously Brantford's a huge hockey city, and having Wayne Gretzky there, but I never really took to it. It didn't really, maybe it was just being cold all the time. I didn't really find a fancy towards hockey, even though very similar games between rugby and hockey, the transitional moving back and forth. But I found rugby within the Brantford Harlequins. My brother was a big proponent of that. He came back from high school probably in grade 9, and he's like, I found this awesome game. It was like all the stuff we were doing in the park. We were tackling each other. We were playing rough, playing with older kids, playing shinny and hockey. And he's like, I found this game that mixes it all and has that physicality, has everything we enjoy. And then he brought me out because he played at that high school for that first spring season. And then he continued on to go to the Brantford Harlequins, and he brought me out. So I got maybe a little bit of a jump on some of my other people, other group of friends, because I got out there that extra year earlier and started playing with the Brantford Harlequins and really learning my trade. And it was just a huge learning experience, and I really enjoyed the camaraderie and the friendship and the rugby, and just stuck with it. And it's been there ever since. It's been a part of my life.
So that's good. So you started early, you started right in Brantford. Where did you go from there? Like, eventually moved over to England. You played, I think it was 130 matches professionally. Obviously an outsider coming from Canada. It's not Canada's game, it's England's game. And you jump into a lineup and you play many seasons. How did that help you become a standout national player for Canada?
I've talked about this lots of times. First of all, like, it's not there's no direct path right now. And I've talked to a lot of other young aspiring rugby players, like, how do you do it? And I'm like, I can't really answer that for you, because it's a different path for everybody. And finding that path it's part of the journey in rugby right now. So for me, I went to university after finishing 4 good years at high school. We were competitive. I got into the U16, U18 Ontario, represented provincial teams, and played really well there. And then you start to get noticed once you get to university, mature a little bit. That's like the first time I got into like high performance strength and conditioning environments. You put on a bit of muscle, you start to focus on those areas. So then Rugby Canada would start to take notice. You're competing at U20 tournaments, under 20. So then back then they had the carding process, right? So the first year I got carded, and I was able to stay in locally at McMaster and continue my education, which was awesome. So I could do both. And then we would just send results back, fitness testing, strength testing results back to Rugby Canada. And then when we got together for tours, and we meet up and they check how those matched up with the results. But then come the next year, I wanted to stay involved, and they made a determination that everybody had to move to the West Coast in Victoria. We had the Center of Excellence. So made the move out there. Lots of people helped me along the way, making those dreams a reality. That speaks back to the rugby community, how good it is that I was able to move my life to the West Coast of the country and be able to find another family out there that took care of me, people in Couch and people in Victoria. They really looked after you, specifically the James Bay and Couch and rugby clubs. I played out there for those teams, and I got a lot of help from Shawnigan Lake. They were huge support for me. So for a year, I helped out there as like an advisor to the students, and then looking after them. So it was just a really good experience and helped me grow, right? Going from just training on a Tuesday, Thursday to training pretty much on a full-time 4 or 5 days a week with good coaches, John Tate, Rick Suggett, those guys. It totally changes how quickly you can develop. So then I do a few years in that program, start getting capped, start playing really well, and then overseas clubs start coming over. I think it was in we were doing a tour to Wales, and we played a game in Millennium Stadium, and some of the boys were chatting, and then a few agents would come to a meeting. They had a dinner, and like a couple of the older, more senior players had the agents, and they brought them into our environment, and like they're like, "Are you interested? I'll put your name forward to these clubs." And eventually, I was like, "Yeah, sure, go ahead, see what you can figure it out." And in 2009, Coventry Rugby Club put a contract down on the table, and I signed it, and thus began my journey overseas in England. And I said, not liking the cold. It wasn't a great experience over there for I think it was 8-9 years, 9 seasons, and there were some cold days where you wish you weren't there. But at the end of the day, you're getting paid to do it, so you do it with a smile, and you're like, I'm just trying to improve to play the best rugby I can play for Canada. And you talk about like those experiences and how they shape you. Like sometimes you compare the Premiership to the Championship, and like a lot of the guys that have played at both levels, they go the Championship is more attritional rugby, like more mauls, more rucks, more you gotta arm wrestle the guy to win the game, versus at the Premiership it's a quicker speed of game that you don't have. So I think the Championship for years have been an excellent breeding ground for those players, to young forwards, to really get hardened to go to the Premiership. And you've seen lots of examples of those players making the jump. So it hardened myself and other players that played in the Championship, so that we could come back to the Canadian team and be able to perform at a certain level and a certain skills. Your skills were always at a higher level because you were constantly doing it all year round. Versus in Canada, some players were going from not playing for 6 months to picking up a ball and trying to compete on an international level. And it's been seen not to be able to do that at this day and age.
No, you're 100% right. It's the weather in Canada, hinders that quite a lot. Most parts of the country, where you might go 6 months if you don't have a ball, without having a ball in your hand. And I think, like you said earlier, that your pathway, it's individual for everybody. Somebody nowadays, they might look at the MLR and jump in there, then maybe go overseas from there. Other people might finish university and head straight overseas, but everybody's pathway is different. And I think you saying that is going to help a lot of younger players understand that there is no predetermined way to get you to the national team. There's lots of different ways to get to that aspect. And speaking of MLR, you're still there with the Arrows. You're in the coaching capacity now. What's the rugby experience like in Toronto? Like, it's Canada's largest city. What's the atmosphere like at an Arrows game?
I'm gonna put my coaching hat on. I think the Arrows experience is amazing. Just to see the amount of, we've grown year on year, right? So to see where we're at right now and the engagement of the fans and how committed they are to it, and just how we continue to grow in the next couple of years. Like, to have like 3,000, 4,000 committed fans coming to Lamport, like, it's a big stadium, but to have that like in that space, it just feels like it's the beginning of something really special, right? So the Toronto community is bought into it, and we're just trying to live up to the expectations they have. They expect us to be a good team that's winning game over the first 2 years. We've shown what we can do, and it's just hard, I feel, for the fans to feel connected, just based on, again, we talked about weather constraints, because we're away for the first half of the season, right? So they've got to stay engaged while we're away for 8 weeks. Very difficult to do, but then they get this amazing home run where they're like 8 weeks in a row, which, again, hard to do because people have real lives and they got to go to whatever, they have other things in their schedules. So to book off 8 weeks in a row to come to rugby, but if you can make that commitment, then a lot of people have, and they've really enjoyed it. And there's nothing better than when it gets warm and downtown Toronto skyline in the background, being able to watch a rugby game. I've sat there a few times and just been like, this is a pretty special experience to be on the ground floor of what I wish I had when I came through the system. Like I said, there was no pathway, right? But now there is a pathway, a more distinct pathway, in order to make it to that highest level. We've kind of started to fill in a few of the steps for players. Not to say that guys shouldn't go and get their education. I'm a big proponent of get your schooling done first. I made sure that was a priority before I went overseas, got to get my university done. And so you got to think beyond rugby, right? So there's a lot of time after rugby. We have a short career span. So you got to make sure that you you get that part of your life sorted out first and foremost.
Yeah, for sure. It's not like you're pulling in NHL dollars or Major League Baseball bucks or soccer bucks, right? So it's when rugby career is done, you can't
As
retire
in
for the
any
rest of your
startup,
life.
the early days, it's gonna take a while for the dollar values to get there. So for the minute, because again, I think back to when I started doing this, we weren't being paid anything. You're doing it for the love of the game. You're doing it because you wanted to represent your country and you wanted to play on the highest stage, and of course you wanted to get that kit. That was always number one when you're a young
absolutely.
rugby player coming through it.
That's a lot of guests talk about getting their first kit. It's always nice to hear.
But then I've heard other guys say it as well. Like as soon as you get to the end of it, you have so much you don't know what to do with, and then you end up like giving it back. I've gone like a couple times to the Harlequins and a couple other places, and just been like, guys, somebody needs this more than I do because I don't wear a lot of it, and it just sits there in a bag in a garage somewhere.
So what are you doing? I guess coaching wise, COVID's happening, MLR shut down. What are you doing to keep yourself, I guess, your knowledge going for the game, and maybe developing set pieces and things like that? What are you doing as a coach?
Yeah, there's lots of professional development. Obviously, the Toronto Arrows and Rugby Canada want to have a really good working relationship in order to improve. Rugby Canada sees this as an excellent opportunity for players to become more refined before they come to the national team level, right? So doing a lot of work with Kingsley Jones and a few of his friends from back in the UK on just developing ourselves as coaches and to develop the philosophies, the way we see things in order to. It's a long process, right? And again, it's the same with coaching as it is with being a player. You always want to improve, and you take every opportunity to try and become a better coach, right? So me personally, I like to be more player centered and just focus on those guys. As far as going through the plays, you're always tinkering, but I haven't tinkered too much because again, when you're successful, I don't feel like you don't want to change too much because you don't want to get away from. You just want to improve on the things you've already put in place. So just trying to figure out that kind of stuff, and just we look at a lot of players. We've almost pretty much signed our whole group, but for a long time there, we were just looking at the players we were thinking about bringing in and just making sure they fit in with how we want to run things, and like you said, the right kind of people to come into our group and be successful.
Any chance you guys are going to get DTH signed?
I can't comment on that.
I know.
Listen, he was an excellent player for the Canadian national team, and we'd love to have him on board. I think
I can edit this one out if you'd like. I just wanted to throw that.
You can't. No, it's nothing to do with that. He's an excellent player. He just might come beyond what we can offer to pay him. That's he comes with a certain price point.
For sure. What you're talking about this in a roundabout way, dealing with Kingsley and Rugby Canada, but what, in your opinion, as a player who's just recently retired, now in the coaching side, what can the MLR do to actually help Rugby Canada and Rugby USA, helping players, helping those national programs?
Yeah, the first point is just like I've said, even if it's 6 months right now, you're probably closer to 8 with a preseason. You're in a full-time training environment for that period of time, right? So young guys that have never had that opportunity to be in that professional training environment, they're getting that opportunity now. And we've increased our professional player base, including guys that are down in the USA, from we had 15 or 20, now we're close to 60, so just having that amount of professional rugby players to choose from, it's starting to make things difficult. And that's what it should be for Kingsley, to be splitting hairs between 2 players, whereas before it was just whoever, until the World Cup came around, whoever showed up was getting into that mix, right? So the real big countries in the world, they're the ones that have 3 or 4 players deep at every position, and we're not there yet. But to continue with the MLR, then hopefully down the road we'll be able to have that situation where we're 3 or 4 players deep at every position, and the differences between those players are so minimal that if you lose one, that's the ability to call on somebody else that can do the job just as well, and then you won't see when you run into injuries, you won't see a difficult period coming.
What I guess in your opinion, this is just an aside, Do you think that like a Vancouver and say a Halifax could also have an MLR team, or is there just not enough homegrown bodies to support two more professional franchises at the moment?
I think there's enough talent within Canada, and I think a lot of the guys that are plying their trade within the USA would like to come home and would come home if they had the opportunity to come. I think what has happened within the MLR is a lot of very smart businessmen have seen this as a very good opportunity to get into a sports market that isn't there, and to get in at a relatively cheap level. But what's happened over the first 3 years is every year that number has jumped up to what it takes to get into the league. And I think the Vancouver and Halifax, you're behind the eight ball a little bit, and the number of people that have that kind of money to invest and be rugby people, there's not that many around. So whether it happens or not, I think Vancouver, like that would be excellent. And I think Halifax is an excellent venue. We've played games out there, and it's just the weather constraints that maybe makes it a little, like if we're struggling, unless they move the season a little bit farther into the spring, then I think it'd be a real possibility then. But because we got to do a lot of loophole jumping just to get our season figured out, to get 8 games on the road and then 8 games at home and get it in by that end, like 3rd week in June figure, where they're trying to keep that in between football. That window is, I think, a really important area.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Sorry, I thought my mic was on mute there. That's a really good point. Like you don't want to try and butt heads with a football season, or as it is, you're kind of going up against hockey playoffs at the same time, right? So it's a tough grind for sure.
Well, the sports landscape is so compacted, and like it's going to be even worse now with COVID, and like everything's going to be trying to push together, and who knows what that looks like. So yeah, we've said it's a possibility things might get pushed a little bit for this season, but I think once things come back, it's going to want to stay in that January till June kind of window. And like, so then internationals are been moved to July, right? So we're in a very prime situation that Canada can have, North America and Canada and US can have something that Europe and the UK don't have, which is an amalgamated season where we run MLR to June, then have July, August test window, and then break. The guys get a serious break window, and then they come together and have another series in November, and then they can come back to MLR after that. So it just lets it be a good cycle that you don't have to ask any questions. You know where you're doing and when you're doing it, and when you have your breaks.
Yeah, your calendar's a lot similar to the Southern Hemisphere calendar as opposed to the European calendar. And I was a big proponent of that potential change, when they were trying to get European clubs on board with changing their season, but it doesn't seem like anything is going to happen anytime soon. But yeah,
there's too many dollars out there to make it really. It's even player welfare stuff. Like we have a good to take care of our players and extend their lifespan over. But when you're playing 30-40 games a year, it just starts to wear down on you, and then you're backing it up to play. You get like your 6 weeks off, and then you're doing it again. It doesn't really give you the time to really heal yourself, which is excellent that the guys have actually had a really good break due to COVID. Like you look at some of the silver linings, there should be guys that the careers will last 2 or 3 more years out of this, because they've been able to have that break away from the game and let some of those niggles kind of go away.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, let's switch gears back to you as a player again. Most cap Canadian, played 80 matches. You were in 3 World Cups, the 07, the 11, and the 15. I'd really like to have you talk to us, I guess, about your versatility. I don't know the breakdown, but you played a lot of games at hooker and a lot of games at number 8, and it's not like you were switching from loose side flanker to open side flank, or from inside center to outside center. Hooker and 8 are two. I mean, they're both in the scrum, yeah, for sure, but they're vastly different skill sets. Talk to us about that versatility that you had to play those 2 positions at the highest level.
Yeah, obviously, I guess I'm a pretty good athlete, so it allowed me to do some of the things I was able to do. And I first off, it was like if I had my time again, lots of people have said to me, like, you were like an exceptional number 8, but you could have been a world-class hooker. And the problem is that I don't think like I really ever bought into it. And I learned pretty early on that I wanted to do whatever was best for the team. And it was never the best thing for the team for me to become the hooker, right? It was always, we have a spot here at number 8. And then when it was best for me to be a hooker, I gave it my best shot, but it was like, you just didn't have that training volume behind me. Like in 07, and that comes down to the kind of environment we have leading into World Cups. It's ferocious, right? And everybody's fighting for every inch, right? But we don't have that the other 3 years. Like, it's just not there, right? Because guys go to their professional teams, they go around, guys come out of the woodwork and just say, listen, I'm going to give this a shot. So we need that every year, right? So that the coach can continue to like improve and build us back up the standings. And so I just did what was best for the team. And when the coach comes to you and goes, listen, do you think you can do this? And I think you're going to cover an extra spot for us, and we can put an extra player on the bench, or we're going to give you some, like in 2015, you're going to get a couple starts. It was an awesome, like you're never going to turn down that opportunity, right? So I backed myself as an athlete to be able to get the job done, and I think it went all right. Like it's just the confrontation in the front row, the melee, like it's something completely, like most people have no idea what's going on there, and it's something completely different, and everybody's cheating, and you're just trying to get a one up on your opposition, and and the people say it's the dark arts, and there were some times I was in some dark places, and I'm glad I got out of it relatively unscathed, and I'm still able to get around and move and stay active. But it's something that, like, I enjoyed the challenge of it, and it was a huge experience. But if I had my time over again, like, maybe I make that commitment fully and be a little bit more selfish and really go for that, to be a world-class number 2. But it didn't happen. I didn't take that route, and I don't regret the choices I made. I got to go to 3 World Cups. I got to experience some amazing memories, and it's what I've done. It's my body of work.
That's awesome. Like, I mean, it's a coach's dream to hear a player of your skill set say, yeah, put me wherever you need me, wherever you think it's best. And as you said, it might have hurt you a little bit as a individual player, but it did nothing but strengthen the Canadian national team all those years you were there. You started talking about a little bit about the World Cup. Talk to us a little bit, that 07 squad, I believe in France. You were a younger player back then. I think you'd only been playing a couple seasons maybe with Canada. I think you started, was it 05?
05, yeah.
Yeah. So you're only a couple years in, and all the way to, I guess, England in 2015 with, 2011 in New Zealand. But talk to us about your time on those 3 squads, being a young player to a seasoned, grizzled veteran, what type of leadership you brought to the club, things like that, the longevity of your career spanning those 3 World Cups.
Yeah, listen, 07 was, obviously, like you've said, I was green, I was young. We had a lot of very seasoned veterans that played professionally overseas. You had Mike James, Rod Snow, you had Morgan Williams, you had those groups, and they were the leadership. And it was a different environment because it was led a little bit by us and them. They were the leadership group, and they were the seasoned internationals, and we were kind of, you're afraid to, like, step out of place, and it was different. But listen, some of the stuff that I've had, like the experiences, like Rick Suggett was an amazing man, and some of the stuff he did to bond us as a team in those 3 or 4 years, like they're like nothing else. Some of the memories that I keep to this day, and I think that's a piece that as I continued on through my journey, we still had it, but it wasn't as pivotal as that. So we were a very bonded team, but it was different, like in the professional rugby and in France. And I think we kind of, for me anyways, I kind of got lost in the pageantry of it for your first World Cup. You become a spectator and a fan, you've watched this your whole life. You're like, I can specifically remember the first game when I got out there in front of 40,000 people, and I was like, oh shit, like, you know, and you can edit that out. You're just like, man, this is amazing, and like you kind of let it slip past you a little bit too quickly, you know. And there's a few of the guys that have played a lot of games as well there in that group that had those experiences as well, and you want it to last forever, I guess. You want those moments to last, and it was amazing for your first World Cup, and we didn't have the results we wanted, obviously, but and like again, when you talk about just getting to the World Cup, everything is in like that pressure builder, but then when you get to it, it just takes another step. And I don't think we've been able to prepare our players for what it's like at a World Cup over the last 12 years or whatever, however long I've been doing it. And I think now that we get that opportunity to have that really concise MLR season, we can start to really prepare players for those kind of pressures that they face on the world stage. And hopefully that can happen over the next 2 cycles. We'll see.
That's fair. Yeah, that's definitely fair. It's hard to prep them for that type of environment when you're not used to playing anything on that caliber.
Exactly.
I don't know. Can you tell us which World Cup was your favorite event to participate in? Yeah,
for sure. I can, like, so for me, it was the 2011 World Cup, like for different reasons. 2011 World Cup as an experience was my favorite, just because it's religion there, right? Like rugby is religion. I remember some of the guys on your pods talking about how the school children would stop us on the road as we're heading to training and do a haka for us. It was just like being immersed in that culture and seeing how they run things. Like it's the ultimate as a union there. Everything's for the All Blacks. Obviously there's competition within those structures, but everything's like with the end goal of making the All Blacks the best team in the world. And I think we lose sight of that sometimes within Canadian rugby. There's a lot of infighting. It's just like, what is the best thing to make the Canadian Rugby Union the best team out there? Like personal, you want to gain your credentials and everything like that, but just find out how you can do that while doing the best thing for the country. It's the ultimate team first atmosphere. So, and that came across completely in the World Cup. And it didn't hurt that we had really good results. It's like we played Tonga and beat them, and we played France close. And so we had a good World Cup where in the other ones, the results didn't go the way we wanted. So then in 2015 was also a really good World Cup for me, just based on that my family was there and we were living in England, and they got to come to some of the games. They got to see me behind the scenes. They got to see some of what goes into being that Canadian rugby player, which they've seen it a few times, like maybe go at a game at BMO or somewhere, but never really on that kind of stage as in the World Cup where you're in Leicester and there's 60,000 people there or whatever the stadium holds. It's just something completely different. Or in Wales, like the guys told you about driving into the Ireland game, and it's just a sea of green everywhere you look. So
yeah, it would have been
a lot of pressure.
Pressure, but good pressure too, though.
Oh, for sure.
Plus, it was I like the 2015 one for the fact that England didn't make it out of the pool stages on their home.
Yeah, it was basically the years after that is doom and gloom for England rugby. So and like one of the best coaches in the world lost his job based on that. And I think he learned something from that. You learn something from every experience, and I've played with a lot of those England guys, and there's a lot of egos within those groups, and I think it's just a lot of coaching at the highest level is just managing egos, and like I said, managing expectations, and making sure everything stays on the right path. And I guarantee he's gone to Leinster and done a job there with a similar group. So.
That's good. Great events for sure. All three of those events. I didn't get to see too many of the 07 because it was they were very tricky to find back then on TV. But I watched all the matches from 11 and 15, and then of course 19. So it's nice to see that TSN and carriers are actually taking more of an interest in rugby. Especially TSN has the contract with the Arrows now and stuff. So it's a great way to get the rugby fix. That's for sure.
One of the good stories from the 07 World Cup is that we were the second most protected team in the World Cup because there was a lot of tension between France and the USA, and they thought they'd think of us as the USA. So we had a full contingent of like armed guards. They travel around with us and protect us, and they actually became part of the team. They came pretty into it, and I think at one point did a little skit where they stole our mascot and made a bit of a joke about it, and it was good times.
That's good. All right, so we're gonna jump into the part now, the quick fire section. And from my understanding, you've listened to a few pods, so you probably know most of the questions. So, it might flow a little easier for you, but we'll see what we can come up with here. Let's jump right in. Best team you ever faced?
Yeah, it's probably the New Zealand All Blacks, 2011, 2000. Yeah.
In New Zealand.
Yeah.
Best player you ever faced?
Yeah, Dan Carter, Richie McCaw. Those guys are very good players.
Very fair. Toughest player ever faced. So what I tell everybody is that it's the 1v1. They've got the ball, and it's somebody that you hope they trip because you're not sure you can stick your head in there and tackle them.
Yeah, it's either one of the two Alagi brothers or Brad Thorne or even one of the Canadian guys, Jamie Cudmore. Like when we trained, it's always tough to go against those guys.
Yeah, I've heard a few guys have mentioned Cudmore too, so that's good. All right, best match you were ever a part of?
Yeah, so I think the Tonga and the 2011 World Cup was one of the best matches. And then we also played a French Barbarians team in Denver, and we beat them. And it was basically after that, most of those players were on the French national team after that, right? So it was a huge result for us. So those two games stick out in my mind. And then obviously my first cap was also a huge game.
Nice. Best team you've ever played with?
So yeah, I thought about this one as well because there's a couple, obviously we say with the Canadian team for the 2011 World Cup, we had the right leadership, we had the group that really wanted to work hard for each other, and we got the results that we were looking for, and we should have gotten automatic qualification other than Tonga decided to beat France in the final game of the round robin. And then for my professional career, I played 2 or 3 years before I finished up, played with London Welsh for half a season before some financial constraints come here. But that team, like we were flying and we were playing really well, and it was there were some really good players. Obviously, a lot of them have gone on to play at the Premiership level. So it was we had a really good team.
Awesome. What's your rugby nickname?
So easy one is Carps. Just goes without saying. But then Andrew Monroe gave me a really good nickname. There's a good story behind this one. Is the Hippo, and so we were training one day, and I think it was a contact session, and I don't know how this ended up happening. He must have ducked or something, but he came into me, and my 2 front teeth went into his forehead, and he had these 2 teeth marks on his forehead. And he just, right after the training, he's like, "You're just a rampaging hippo," and it stuck for a while. So I was the Hippo.
That's not bad. That's a good one. It's a good story.
Good
Who
one.
was the player that you love to smash?
It's usually like I think of one of those backs, so someone like a 9 or a 15 that just they're trying to avoid contact. So if they get into a ruck, I'll give Matt Evans maybe, or Gordy or Phil Mack, one of those guys that you get a hold of him and you're like, this doesn't happen very often.
As a retired number 9, I take a little offense to that, but I fully understand.
I know how it goes.
All right. Any rugby superstitions?
A couple. I just I always wore like an undershirt, and then I always listen to the same song before the game. I would listen to Rancid Time Bomb, listen to it 80 times, and usually got me pretty fired up to get out there and go be a bit of a time bomb myself.
Fair enough. All right. The Netflix documentary on Jordan there, The Last Dance. Have you watched that?
I have, yeah.
All right. Tell me who of the players you've played with, who is the Jordan, who is the Pippen, and who is the Rodman?
Yeah, so I guess Tyler Ardron, probably the Jordan, just the way he holds himself, the way he's internationally recognized across pretty much the entire rugby landscape. Pippin, I'll shout it back to Adam Kleberger. I think like that guy he's done more work for Rugby Canada and put his head in some places that nobody wanted to go, and he just worked hard for it, and he was excellent. And then Rodman, there's a couple probably Jeb Sinclair or Nick Blevins or your guys. They're the guys that just beat to their own drum and they just get things done their own way.
Jebby's been nominated as Rodman by quite a few people. So it's nice to see that continue on.
He just plays with that edge that Rodman played with. You know, he's not taking a step backwards, and he works hard for everything.
That's good. That's right. All right. Weekend golfing trip. What 3 people are you taking with you? It can be rugby players. It can be famous people. It can be anybody from history. Entirely up to you.
Sure. I'll take my boy with me. I'll take my son Nathaniel.
How old is he?
I'll take the Pirates boys. I'll take Brett Bukaboom and Matt Evans, who have some good banter on there as the Canadians that dug in the deep south for many years. And I guess that's my foursome.
All right. How old's your little fella?
He's 7.
So is he golfing or is he carrying the clubs? Is he caddying?
Yeah, he might be the caddy for now, but I'm getting him swinging some, trying to get him up there so
Nice.
he can play a short par 9 hole.
Nice. I'm heading to the mini putt after this is done with my young fella.
Awesome. Yeah, you got it. The short game's half the game. You got to get it sorted.
All right. What's the most used app on your phone?
Ooh, that's a new one. Can I check my phone? I don't know. At the minute, probably be Twitter or one of those. There's a bunch of apps that check like on the players' health and stuff like that, so we keep up to date with players' physical well-being through an app. So I keep up on that.
I thought you were going to say TikTok, so I'm kind of
I don't TikTok. Not a TikTok. I stopped at Twitter because Instagram it surpassed me.
All right, what's your go-to food?
See, now you got me tough ones. I always used to sit like I'll probably sit like if I like a home comfort, like a good lasagna, homemade that just makes you feel like it's like your mom made or your grandmother made, just to make you feel at home.
Put you right to sleep.
Yeah.
All right. So I feel like somebody's behind you right now with the signs holding up the questions.
The answers?
Yeah.
I wish they give me the answers.
All right, what's so chips or cookies?
Yeah, I thought about this one too. I'd go cookies. You can't go wrong with a good chocolate chip. But then I also was like, I'll have a good oatmeal raisin just to make you think you're being healthy. You know, that's I like to do that to myself. Like I'm having a cookie, but I'm healthy. You know?
Homemade, obviously, too, right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. French fries or onion rings?
Yeah, French fries.
Poutine or French fries?
Yeah, I think as a Canadian, you got to say poutine.
Very good. What's your favorite beer?
Lately I've been drinking Steam Whistle, a Canadian company. It's a supporter of Rugby Canada. I enjoy it.
I love Steam Whistle. It's hard to find out here in New Brunswick, though. It's good stuff. What's a guilty pleasure?
I probably eat more ice cream than I should. Like when I need it, a little boost, a little scoop of ice cream gets me there.
What's your go-to ice cream?
Lately it's been the cookies and cream or butterscotch ripple or something around that area.
Okay. What's the best place for a post-match beer?
See, now everybody is saying that like the change room and stuff like that, but I do think that is probably the best place, but I'm going to go somewhere different because we had a tradition with Rugby Canada, like usually at the end of the tour, we've put in all this hard work. We would have a little a circle gathering where everybody would just have their say about what they enjoyed and how we can make things better, and have a beer, and then just kind of like a little bit of closure to the tour or whatever it was. So I really enjoyed that. I thought it really bonded us as a group.
Yeah, it seems like a nice touch there. What series are you binge watching right now?
So I right now I'm watching a series on Netflix called The Home Game, and if you haven't seen it, the first episode is about an Italian game called Calico Storio, which is basically rugby and bare knuckle boxing put together.
Oh,
And
yes. I've seen that on
They
YouTube.
play 2 games a year. They don't get paid, but they just line up, and they're seen as like gods and superheroes. It's an excellent feature, and it goes through a couple other of games that are played in Uzbekistan, I think is one, and it's just like I look to some of these different documentaries that go to like just different places on sports and some of that kind of ideas. If I'm looking for something just to shut my brain off, then Brooklyn Nine-Nine or
It's a good one.
The Office or something like that. Something that's going to make me have a little chuckle.
Yeah. What's your favorite movie?
Yeah, I've thought about this. Like, I'm a big '80s guy, so like I've thought about it. And like when I was a kid, I came through, watched The Princess Bride, and I'm showing it to my kid, and it's like they say it's got fencing, fighting, wrestling,
Giants.
It's got it all. So it ticks all the boxes.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites too. Who would play you in the Netflix movie of your life?
Yeah, I don't know about that one. Maybe it's John Travolta or something, or
You got some dance moves, do you?
No, I don't. I was thinking more like a Pulp Fiction or I don't know.
All right. Who would play the leading lady?
So yeah, for this one, my wife is she's Colombian, and she act a little bit like Sofia Vergara, so I gotta throw that out there.
Not bad. And last one, what would the movie be called?
Probably the Hippo.
The Angry Hippo.
Maybe.
All right, so thanks for that. So we'll jump back into the regular section of the pod now. A little more serious note. Talk to us about your retirement. You left due to concussions. It's hard when an athlete has to go out when it's not on their terms. How did you come to that decision? Like how long did that weigh on your mind before you actually said, it's best for my health if I walk away?
Yeah, it's a tough one, and I've talked a lot around concussions, and like I don't think you can change anything, or you would want to change anything. Like if you're a young person, the benefit of rugby, what it offers to you, far outweighs the risks of what happens on the field. And I think the biggest thing is that we've come a long way as rugby and how we manage injuries like that, concussions, stuff that can't be seen. And if you have proper recovery from that injury, which is what it should be classified as, then you should be fine. It's where we get into situations where we put players and people into tough decisions to get out there before they're ready. And I had some of those in my professional career near the end, putting myself in a situation where I wasn't comfortable to be out there, but I was putting myself out there because it's tough, because it's one of those injuries you can't see, and people don't believe you that you're not in the right place, right? And it's tough because if it wasn't, I know the person that I am, that I'm always willing to compete and give my all, like some people could question whether the symptoms you're having are real or not, right? Because it's only in your head. So it's a very gray area, but I think there should be at least a certain period of time where, like, it's a sit down period. If you're sustained a known concussion, then you have a mandatory 3 weeks off or a mandatory 4 weeks off, whatever that is, because you need to get back to where you were, back to normal. And it's just, I don't think, if the injuries didn't happen, would have I've given up? Like, probably not, because I enjoyed the game so much. And like, you talk about leaving on your own terms, and it's a very difficult thing to do, because like, as long as you're performing to the certain level that you need to be successful, you want to keep going out there, right? And you want to keep competing, and you want to keep doing everything you can to make the team better. So I think I would have kept doing that, at least until I felt like I was no longer helping the team and I was actually becoming a detriment to the team, right? And you have to be able to. It's a really hard thing to do because I said that kind of before we started talking. Everybody's got a bit of an ego, and they think they're the best, and you have to be able to see beyond yourself and see what's the best for the team in the long run. So it's a good thing I stepped out when I did, because there's lots of good young back rowers that were nipping at my heels, and they really deserved to get that shirt for themselves.
Yeah, it's still hard to do, but yeah, nobody ever wants to see somebody kind of hang them up because of injuries, so it can't be easy. You know, it's been a little bit now. How are you now? Do you have any lingering symptoms? Are you symptom free, or are you still battling some stuff?
No, I'm now symptom free. I had about a year and a bit that it took me a while to get over the cobwebs and get back to feeling normal. And I just it took some time. Like, lots of things triggered me to feel pretty bad, like exercise and stuff like that. But I just did some low steady stuff and just kept trying to build up a little bit of different patterns to feel comfortable, you know. And it took some time, but it's there now, and I feel good. And most of it's based on like your sleep, right? Just like anything. And I think a lot of with concussions, you get trouble with your sleep patterns, and that tends to send you off. And as long as I get that right, I feel like I'm 100%.
Awesome. That's great to hear. Who had the biggest impact on you as a player, Aaron?
Yeah, it's tough because there's so many. You always ask that, and all your coaches, and I really thankful to some of the guys from Brantford, from the home, like Bob McGee and Dave Goodrow, some of those Bob Booz, Mick Ferris, the guys that introduced me to the game. Because without being introduced to the game, you never have this experience and journey that we went on. So some of those guys are pivotal. Some of the higher level coaches like Rick Suggett, like without getting that first opportunity to get in there, like Rick was amazing, and he put together a young team and gave young guys that he thought had the ability, the opportunity to succeed. And I think we had a really good period based on some of the work that he did early on. And I think we need to get back there and just give young guys that I think have the athletic potential, give them the opportunity to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. And then Kieran Crowley came in and just gave us a different focus on the skill levels we needed to compete at the highest level. Like, it was never a lot of work done on skills, and we became a really, you talk about the back line, we had a really good forward pack and a back line that started clicking because Kieran put so much work into those guys. So I think he was really influential on development. And then just my family driving me, I don't know how many Ontario practices that were miles away from Brantford, and they put in the hours, giving up weekends and stuff like that. They were very influential to make sure I got the experiences.
That's great. A lot of people helping you on your journey, so it's nice that you can recognize them. What are your thoughts on what makes a great team player? As a player and as a coach, does it differ?
I don't think so. I think I look at it not so much from a coach point of view. I look at it as more of a player point of view, where the and part of my own experience of it is the guy that will do anything for the team. You know, that's the guy that you want out there fighting for you. Like, rugby's, it's tough because like rugby's this game where it's more group focused than any other game out there, right? You have stars in other games, individuals can succeed, but it's hard in rugby for the individual to be put above the team. And like Gareth and Al have talked about that kind of stuff, where you're just a reflection of what everybody does. You don't become that player unless everybody does the work around you to make that possible, but you get recognized for it. Where like that's what I think of as a team player, just the guy that silently does what nobody else is willing to do, and the guy that's willing to make sacrifices in order to make the team better on a constant occasion.
Okay, that's fair. As a rugby player, somebody you just retired, maybe in say 2041, it's 30 years since that 2011 event, Rugby World Cup event. you're back together with all the mates. What do you want to be remembered for? What do you want them to say about Aaron Carpenter as a rugby player? What do you hope they say?
Listen, I thought about that one too. I don't know if I want to be remembered. I want the focus to be on the next generation. You know, like I've had my time, and it's awesome, but I don't want to dwell on that kind of stuff. The next chapter for me is coaching. So we'll sit there, and I'm humbled by all the recognition I do get, but I just want to focus on new chapter, new beginnings, and giving young guys opportunities to have the same experiences I had and be able to grow from them.
That's awesome. Lastly, any great stories you can share with us? You already told us the Hippo story, but do you have anything else you can?
Yeah, I'm going to throw one guy under the bus, but not too bad. I thought about this one that, and we would train hard, and like maybe sometimes you're on 3 days, and you come back from a hard training session, either weights and lots of fitness, and you're pretty tired. So we would all you'd sneak in a quick nap, and you'd just be like, I need to get this nap in, need to get refreshed for the next training session. And we had Nanyak around for his first tour, and we're like, Yak, you're gonna sleep through a big meeting or something. Like, I don't remember if it was his first cap or his first start, but we had the meeting. You get the jersey presentation, and I think, I don't know if I was his roommate or who was his roommate, but we kept warning him, like, you're gonna sleep through one of these meetings. You're gonna sleep through something serious. And sure enough, for this big capping ceremony, nobody noticed. He couldn't get up from his nap, and he was sitting there. And he gets the coach calls his name, like, congratulations, Nanyak, first start. And everybody looks around and it's just like, oh no, it happened. It happened. We thought it was going to happen. It happened. He's missed this meeting. And so whoever his roommate was, I don't remember, but he just bolts straight up, runs to the room, goes and gets him, comes back, and he gets his jersey. He's still wiping the sleep out of his eyes. And I don't think he ever made that mistake again, but it was a good one. It was a memorable first cap for old Nanyak.
Yeah, that's a good story. Well, listen, Aaron, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me on this Friday afternoon, and wish you nothing but the best of success with the Arrows and your family life after rugby. And maybe we can get you back on again and chat some more rugby. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Jamie. Any time, man.
Cheers. All right. Thanks very much, Aaron. Appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. Great listening to your story. I had some great words of wisdom, and wish you all the best there with the Toronto Arrows. I'm sure you'll do great wonders in your coaching career if you're taking that drive and tenacity you had as a player and you're putting it into your coaching. So that's going to be great for the Arrows, and we look forward to you moving up the ranks of the coaching files there. I'd love to have you on again. Maybe we can do another one some other time with maybe a little round chat style discussion, but we'll see. Again, thanks very much to Archie for sharing Colin's story, and Dave. Dave was along for the journey. A little harder to hear, but Dave had a couple of rum into him. And sorry, Dave. But really, really appreciate Archie taking the time and telling Elliot's story. Coming up next, our next pod will feature Jack Hanratty of Rugby Nova Scotia and Canada's U20 women's team. We also have Kyle Bailey coming up soon, and we also have Tyson Bukaboom, cousin to Brett's. Brett was he's a friend of the pod, and Tyson will be on shortly to share her story as well. And then lots more on tap after that. So again, thank you to listeners. Appreciate all of you listening or watching and making sure you're spreading the word. Let's do the best we can to get these great rugby stories out from these great Canadians. I think it's great that we all get a chance to honor them and hear what they have to say. As always, I got to thank Ben Sound Music for supplying us with their tunes. And as always, feel free anytime, request a topic, request future guests, request questions for guests, whatever you need, just ask, and I'll do my best to help out. So until next time, this is Jamie. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay sane. Most importantly, keep on rocking.